math teacher.
All right, we're going to go ahead and start. I think everybody's back. So we're going to call the order, and then our first will be a salute to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. Correspondence. Chris?
Not as far as I know.
That's usually true. Public comment, Martha? Please. Nothing. Okay. Okay, consent agenda. We have the meeting minutes. Does anybody have anything to extract? No?
Move that we approve the consent agenda as presented.
Okay. Second. All those in favor? Okay. Abstaining? All right. PTO update. Bree texted she's not going to be here tonight, so we'll get that next month. And Dr. Stella, you're up.
I'm up. Thank you. Well, I hope everyone is having a good summer. Hang on, because it's almost over. And we hope the children are as anxious as we are to get together back at school. You know, as I've said so often, and you know that Beecher Road School has been a beehive of activity this past summer, as it is every year. I would estimate over 500 children and adults have been using the school almost on a daily basis. You know, we have 5 different types of summer programs that have been going on, and they all seem to be thriving, and they were thriving, I should say. Children seem to be very happy with it. At the same time, you had teachers and administrators working very hard during the summer. I want to compliment my administrative team. They had put in days and hours beyond their regular days, working on things such as teacher administrative evaluation plans, new mandates from the state, accountability data. Our CMT data got back very late. We had to work with that. And a lot of think tanking went on too. And curriculum is always a work in progress. Our teachers have been very, very busy working on different aspects of it, always trying to improve, taking the Common Core and try to make it a reality for us at school. So that's been going well. That's been going on. Our team, compliments to our custodial team, they've been very, very hard at work. This is a very unique building. It's actually a group of interlocking structures. How large is it, Al?
About 174,000 square feet.
174,000 square feet. Well, they have been busy getting the school ready in spite of all this activity and people moving around, and it will be ready on the first day. And in addition to that, there have been several projects going on at the school, thanks to the support of the school board and the town. One was just recently completed. I'm so pleased to announce that the acoustics project that was not years but decades in the waiting has been completed. And how do I know, Carl, the benchmark? There was a benchmark for this year. I'm getting better. I wrote it down too. The benchmark was we had scores of kindergarten children and their parents in the cafeteria today. And it was so easy to hear everyone speak. And the acoustics were fantastic. So they did a good job. And it looks good. If you have a chance, stop by the cafeteria and take a look. There were a number of other projects. Maybe Al could update us on some of the other projects that have been completed or will be completed by the time the children get back.
We can start with what has been completed. The entire 5th and 6th grade classrooms all received a fresh coat of paint. And you'll recall last year we focused on the C wing, 3rd grade, so the painting progress continues. As Dr. Stella mentioned, we did the acoustical project in the cafeteria. And that too was preceded with a fresh coat of paint on the radiators as well as the wall. So bottom to top, that area really received a major facelift. We're also in the progress right now of installing the new telephone voicemail page announce system in the building, and are on target to have that up and running before the start of school. We also have the paving project going out back in the north playground area. North and south parking lots had line striping and curbing surfaces replaced. That's sort of a double-edged sword, because while it enhances and redirects traffic on the parking spaces, it also does call attention to some of the uneven pavement and the potholes and the concrete imperfections. But again, we're hopeful to see some progress on that as well soon. Also, last week, we completed replacement of the carpet and tile in the north office. And this coming week, we will be on schedule to start the library carpeting replacement. So lots of good stuff. As Dr. Stella often says, Beecher Road School doesn't sleep, and this summer was no exception.
Sometimes we don't sleep either. But Al, thank you very much. I know you work very hard on these projects as a lead person, so we appreciate that, and Mr. Kugel also. The school, our district, all of us, the school board, we constantly look towards improving the safety and security of our children, our staff, anyone who comes into the building. Our uniqueness also is a challenge because we've been an open society for so many years and a welcoming community, so we want to balance that with having being prudent as far as security measures for our children. As we know, dealing with our own professionalism and dealing with our police department and state experts and national experts, that ingress and egress are very, very important times as far as safety goes. So we've taken a good look at our ingress and egress. I mean, we just love standing outside the door in the north, especially in welcoming the children and families and having conversations and so on. So we're trying to get that balance, but we do have to improve on the amount of time it takes to get our children inside the building and also how they leave the building. So that's a new normalcy that we're addressing. And we're putting into effect some tightened procedures this year, and we're asking for the support of our parent community, school board, of everyone in doing this here. Our focus is on having a more secure environment for our children. So I'll ask Mrs. Prisco to kind of outline some of the things that parents should know about our changes in procedures. And by the way, I'm doing something for the first time this year. Next week I'll be sending out by mail an expanded copy of the superintendent's update that will have some important information for parents, including some of these procedures.
Thank you. So we do have some changes for pickups predominantly and drop-offs in the morning. Our buses, we are going to keep north and south, 2 places where children will disembark. Again, older children down in south, younger children will disembark at north. We are trying to tighten the time frame if that happens. We're looking at a 10-minute window, which means that the doors need to stay closed until 8:20, aside from children who are going to extended day. And that is a change. And we have staff that will be at 8:20 going outside to assist, with any child who is not taking the bus. We strongly encourage the bus. But if you do need to drop off your child, they will be taken out and come across as they have done in the past. But at 8:20 is when the doors will open and the children will be coming inside. That's when supervision starts. So we need to make sure that the children are safe.
Can you just say that again? I missed something. So if a parent drops off, so a parent comes at 8:15, what happens to the kid?
That's exactly why we have drop-offs at 8:20, because that's what time we can open the door. So a parent would have to wait there with the child or not let the child get out of the car at that point. So at 8:20 is when all of the children will be let in. And again, one of the things that we have to look at with safety and security is we do not want to discourage parents from being a part of Beecher Road School. But parents will not just be walking children down to the classrooms. If a parent needs to deliver something, they can go to the office. They must take a visitor pass if it actually has to be carried by a parent to a classroom. But something that we were enlightened to is, as much as we are pretty strict to our policy, parents were still coming on down. And again, we don't want to discourage. We welcome parents, but we do have to follow procedure.
Yeah, well, what I'll emphasize is that we do want to keep our community spirit. We want parents to feel welcome in the building. The aim of these procedures is to get the children into the building as quickly as possible. Parents can come in, they'll ring to, and they'll go to the office, they'll get their passes. If there's something that they have to go to the classroom, they'll go to the classroom. But this way we know who's in the building and who's going where. As before, we had the doors open, there was staff outside, but the office was very, very busy. People could just walk right in. And of course, we have wonderful parents coming in, but we don't want people who don't belong walking in also at the same time. We're going to have, it's a new procedure. So there may be some glitches in the beginning. I guarantee you this here, our administrative staff, and members of the staff, myself, will be outside, just watching out for children too, so nobody's going to be hanging loose there either. But we're trying to get the children in, and we've been advised by this here, by our police department and our experts that study schools and so on, is have as quick an ingress as possible, and then carry on business afterwards. Officer Lynch will be with us the first day. We'll try to have another police officer to help us with traffic that day too. And there's a major campaign, and I know there are reasons for not taking the buses, but we're going to try to have a major campaign to encourage those parents who can put their children on the bus to do so, because we do have too many drop-offs. It's, that will hinder us as far as the safety standard.
Well, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
You mentioned a written announcement. Is that going to be the only form of announcement of the change in emphasis and planning for the arrival?
I'm not sure what you mean. I mean, something will be going home to the parents. It'll be in the handbook. Could be done by
We
instant
can put it on
alert.
instant
Strike
Instant
it.
alert you're talking about?
It's instant alert.
So few people read their mail that, you know, it's
Well, of course,
email
anything
blasting
anything
and
that gets sent out by paper gets on the website.
Website, there's a mailing, that's why we're making it a mailing too, from the superintendent's office with the update. We'll have it on the website. We can consider a green instant alert kind of situation.
The document attached.
And
And you could
Yeah.
send a link to the PTO.
PTO,
update.
absolutely.
You just need to
Absolutely.
kind
Yeah.
of, they're sending updates now.
Right.
People are getting PTO updates already.
So that
It's
would be,
not, you know, I don't know if the kindergarten parents are on the distribution. All of them.
We'll have to make sure that
And questioning if a child has to come early, extended day is always available, and we can always bring a child down to extended day in the morning, even if it's an unexpected. I mean,
That was going to be my question. How do you distinguish between the extended day students versus the ones who are getting dropped off and the parents don't realize or forget or just drop off?
Ms. Calamarico is a person who bring in early just for that purpose. If a child's coming to, if a child is very early, we know they're coming to extended day.
Okay.
If a child shows up at 8 o'clock, and they say, no, I'm not sure if I'm supposed to go to extended day for safety, we would send them to extended
Okay.
day. Mhm.
All right.
we will watch out for every child, I
Absolutely.
guarantee you.
No, sure,
Yeah.
sure, sure.
Absolutely. And the afternoon is a bit different. One of the issues that was brought to our attention, as we were aware, was the traffic in the afternoon in the front door, where children are exiting for buses and parents are entering to pick up children, and they were crossing paths. So we needed to relocate that. We've relocated pickups to the cafeteria. The document will read that in this, for parents, they will be coming in the gate to the left of the front door, not the front door. And kindergartners will not be dismissed out the cafeteria door, they will be dismissed out the front door. So parents will come along that kindergarten sidewalk and enter to pick up children at the cafeteria door. We are trying to eliminate that north foyer, that north hallway congestion. So all students will exit to go to their buses from the north. All students that typically exit north will exit right through there, and parents will pick up at kindergarten, sign their children out at the cafeteria, and walk back out that door so that they won't cross paths.
It's hoped that in the cafeteria, again, that we shorten the pickup time so that it's not a long wait for parents online and inside the building. The children will be sitting at different tables, I guess alphabetically. Nancy, you could add anything to it that you want, because Nancy's been working on that too. And we're looking into software too that will speed the sign-up process too, where all a parent has to do is put up their license or a photo ID card, and it's automatically registered and they just pick up their child.
So we were in the cafeteria a few years back, and it got moved to the, and I don't remember why. My wife probably does, but I don't.
Very congested.
Why did we move from the cafeteria to the gym? And I agree, it's an issue to pick up. I think that's the biggest security risk we have. But
There was a different security issue. That was the sign-in process we wanted to have. Nancy, correct me if I'm wrong, because you were involved with this here. As far as moving to the gym, it was to get a more concise security process of signing out.
And to be closer to the office for students who didn't get picked up on time, and if there weren't enough adults down at the cafeteria to come down to the office or to call and see if there was a problem with a child who didn't get picked up. So that was.
There's a new reality. When that decision was made, it wasn't the same reality we have today.
And we've rectified that with the use of the radios, and there are some students who do get picked up daily. They don't utilize the buses. I understand on, certain days of the week, you might have to pick up, you have violin, or we have dance, piano. So we are trying to encourage the bus use, but on those days where you do have to pick up, 3:05 is when the children are being called down, and that's when the doors open for parents to come on in and sign out. But as far as the movement, and again, Nancy shared why they were moved before. Out of there, we use radios now, and we do have a significant number of staff that are available.
I'm just trying to understand how, because to be honest, I mean, the pickup area to me is a very, if you, from a risk standpoint, you have a lot of kids lined up in rows in one area, and you have a lot of adults that are coming in and out of the building. How is moving to the cafeteria changing the idea that you have a lot of kids in one area and parents that are coming in and out of the building?
It's a more controlled, we've picked up before, the doors were just opened, and anybody came in through those doors.
We had bus children too.
We had
the
bus
So
children
are the
leaving.
doors into the cafeteria, that entrance to the building, the doors into the building, are they gonna be
Are closed.
locked and there's gonna be someone there
3:05.
checking IDs there?
Yeah.
They'll be coming in, they won't be checking IDs at the door, they'll be checking IDs at the cafeteria.
So they get into the building?
They can get into the
They can
building.
get into the building.
But there'll be tables separating the hallway. There'll be more adults there, so they can't get into the main building without somebody.
No, there will be an adult at that entrance door, directing people into the cafeteria to sign out. As far as, so I'm not sure of your question about gathering the large students for dismissal, is that?
Steve, what this does is, you had a very large number of students in the north using that door. So we're taking one group and putting them somewhere else. You have the bus children leaving by the north, and the bus children leave very, very quickly, so we can get them out while doors closed. Then the children in the cafeteria, we're limiting the pickup time to a certain time. We're trying to make it more efficient. So they'll be at different tables, and as they did before, and they'll just come in, and the parents, once they pass the checkpoint, will just go and sign in at the table and take their child out.
Okay. And what time is the bus pickup, and what time are parents gonna be able to pick up their kids in the cafeteria?
Let me check. So at 3:05 is when the doors will open for parents. That's the first call for children to go down to the cafeteria. And then we will still have first run, second run, extended day will be called with second run, and then after-school activities.
So what time's first run and second run? I'm sorry, I don't know.
3:10 and 3:15.
So parents are coming in before the kids are getting on the bus?
Parents are coming to the other door before children, aside from kindergartners get on first. We don't have kindergartners.
And now, are IDs going to be checked when parents come to pick up, or is it still going to be the sign out, just signing your name?
Signing your name. The staff that works, I have to give them kudos. The staff that works the pickups, or the pickup spot, they know everybody. And if there's an unfamiliar face, then the office is called. Are they on the pickup pass? If their name is not on there, they're sent to the office, and the office is called. So they do. It's fortunately, very familiar. They're familiar people. I guess that would change if people were only there once a week.
Well, it would certainly slow things down if suddenly everyone had to give an ID to.
Was there any thought given to, not to make it more inconvenient, but to get the kids out of the school for, send kids to the cafeteria who are for pickup, get the kids on the bus and get the buses out before you have all these cars coming
There
into
was
the...
actually, and then in talking with Officer Lynch and safety, the lineup of cars that would be sitting on Beecher Road waiting for the buses to pull out so they could pull in, the buses would never get out. Because if you're waiting until...
It's a domino effect. One thing.
If you touch one, so because it was considered that no pickups would happen till 3:20. So buses pull out at 3:18, and currently right now, some parents come at 2:40, 2:30, wait in line to pick up their children.
With a focus on children, we adults are going to have to change some of where possible, some of our habits to ensure better safety for our children. So that's our attempt. It's a step. We'll analyze it as we go along. If we can improve upon it, we will. If there's something we don't see, but we have to try to improve. situation. And again, it's a new reality. Again, last year the doors were wide open and so on, but we were open school. Didn't seem that it was a hazard to us. But again, we're working closely with a lot of people. And that's one area we have to improve on.
And we will continue to assess it. I by no means do any of us think it's perfect yet at this point. We hope that it will be, and we hope that it runs very smoothly. But we'll look at it and
Mrs. Prisco is the chair of our ongoing safety committee that meets often, and again has representation from the PTO, the police department, the school board, and so on. So all ideas are always welcome. And again, we want to keep our spirit as a school and our essence as a school, and at the same time improve safety and security.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Moving on to the next part, I'll try to speed this up a little bit. What am I going to show you? What do you think? What do you think? Well, it's not about the trip to China. The CMTs came back very, very late this year, later than ever. We recently got them. So I'll tell you ahead of time, we haven't been able to go deep into it. You'll see numbers. And what I would suggest is that put your questions down. I promise you a thorough presentation on the CMTs in September, but when we could really analyze what a number means. But this will give you a quick overview of some things that the board has been interested in the past. So on first blush, there are some things that we say, wow, in a positive way. Beecher Road School is the top of our DERG, number one, and a very high-performing DERG in science. So it's the first time we've ever been number one. We've been very high the first time we've been ever.
Why is there an asterisk next to that?
I'm sorry?
Why is there an asterisk next to that?
They're not.
Because Bethany's not part of the DERG.
Oh, they're not?
What are they?
They're DERG C.
Yeah, we
It's
put
just
it there
the BOA
because it's part of BOA.
Right.
So just from that point of view. Okay, now let me give you another surprise here. I'll get to it.
You're just showing us the good things.
I can't find the other stuff. Wait a
One
minute.
slide presentation.
That's it.
You
I
know,
enjoyed it.
kill me. I mean, I'm not gonna hold
Okay,
back.
time to go. Yeah.
Let's
Slide
see.
through them all.
I'll try to throw a surprise in there for you, Steve. Okay. Here's our CMT data. Here's the general data. Again, we haven't dug deeply into it, but some initial. Now, let me mention this here. This is from the commissioner's mouth. The state of Connecticut in general has gone down in every subject area in CMT, every content area. That may have a lot to do with the crazy year we had last year, in school, out of school kind of situation. But we performed just initial glance, we're whatever it means, we're high in rank in the DERG from 4th grade to 6th grade. Number one in mathematics in 6th grade. If you don't mind me taking license, tied for number one with Trumbull in 5th grade. There's a 0.5 difference. Trumbull is really very good in math, by the way. Always had a history of success. What surprised us, our 3rd grade, we kind of took a look at this here, and we'll have to dig deeper with the 3rd grade. It may have something to do with the implementation of Common Core, we're not sure, but we'll try to give more narrative to that the next time around. Now, let me go down. So that's math. Reading, again, if you look at 4th to 5th grade, the number one spot. Okay, with Orange, and Orange's main focus has been a very strong focus is on reading, so we're proud to be alongside of Orange. We're all trying very hard. So 95%. But a significant thing is 100% of our children in those 2 grades have reached the proficiency level. So it's talk about differentiation. there's an indicator of some work that's been done. Our third grade is low. I mean, we're very low. And again, now, the fourth grade, by the way, the fourth grade, if you look at last year's third grade scores, last year's third grade scores were very low. So there could be explanations to this year, but again, we won't go into detail at this time.
Say it again, last year's fourth grades were low?
Yeah.
Third
Third grade, I'm sorry.
When they were in third
When they were in third
When
grade.
they were third.
Third grade has traditionally been low with us here at the school. And
What grade your kid in?
We have 2 in third grade. This is going well.
I got one starting third grade,
Yeah.
just trust me.
Now, does everyone, do all these schools start the testing in third grade, or?
Yes.
Oh, yes, every school starts in third grade. Not every
One in
district.
6 too, by the way. So I just to be
Just
safe.
balance it out, balance it out.
But now, different districts are in different phases as far as implementation of the Common Core. The Common Core is much different, and we're going to come to that later, and we're going to ask for a vote on something. It's very different from the new testing system that's going to be brought in by the state. That was scheduled for next year. We hope that you'll vote to support it for this year. So our teachers have been thrust with a foot in both worlds, preparing children for CMT, preparing children for the other type, and so on. Our early grades have really gone into the Common Core. So has that have an influence? We'll talk more about it at the next meeting.
Grades 4, 5, and 6 are knocking it out of the park, so.
And knocked it out of the park, absolutely out of the
Right.
park. Yeah.
Did our testing in the classroom for the third graders give a hint as to where we were going to be?
I'll let the staff answer that.
We had worked with our third grade. They had been struggling along, receiving support, but that number was a little more surprising than we anticipated.
Yeah.
I think I can say it that way.
Is there a reason why we're listed twice? I'm just on the.
Oh,
bridge.
well, that was
They wanted-
Cheshire,
they wanted
I'm
to
sorry.
emphasize it.
You know what, they wanted to emphasize it, the one underneath is Cheshire, I'm sorry.
Oh, that's Cheshire underneath.
Cheshire.
660
They're embarrassed, they wanted to have it.
They asked us to put it in as Woodbridge. It's Cheshire,
I
I'm
went
sorry.
to a meeting with the superintendents, with the commissioner, and I shared this comment. It wasn't elicited, but he said that the CMTs have gone down throughout the state. He was disappointed with that. And he said the third grade could have been affected in some districts by the amount of work that's been done with the Common Core, the transition. But again, I'm not using that as an excuse. We'll take that.
So do you-
We'll take a good look.
I'm sure you, but do you call like at Avon and Madison and find out what you do in third grade is different?
We haven't
What?
yet, but we will. We will make calls and so on, yeah. You know, one thing that's,
But how relevant is it? Because you're implementing a whole new curriculum for next year anyway that's gonna be
That's-
measured by a different test,
Yeah.
so whatever
We're not,
Avon and
we're not
Madison-
implementing a new curriculum. Our
Well, a
curriculum
new
for
test.
reading is, the
A new
test might be different, but the
test.
curriculum is the same.
yeah, well, that's what I mean.
reading curriculum's not
Kindergarten,
changing.
first and second grade here in this district,
Yeah.
we've put a major focus on moving towards the Common Core. So has that influenced the score? It could in part. I mean, the commissioner has said that himself. Could they brother other things too? And remember, we moved towards one school philosophy, which we hope will give us more of a cohesiveness, K to 6 too. So that's something we'll look at also. But this is to give you a little taste and to tell you that we'll work hard in analyzing the data and getting back to you. We'll particularly look at the vertical scales and how individual groups of children do and things like that, rather than just one number. But we can't help but to be delighted with some of the Grand Slam home runs that were hit. And we'll look at the other part too.
Third grade and fifth grade with Avon will be doing great.
That's
We can do that.
okay.
What's the, so what that was reading, isn't there more, there's writing?
There's writing.
You want writing too?
Yeah, writing.
Hey, you know,
There you go.
Writing, Grand Slam home run over here.
Wow.
And respectful over here, but not number one. And now third grade, they did better with writing.
And then this is all goal, not this.
This
all
is
goal.
gold, this is gold,
At or
gold and above.
At or above goal.
Yeah, at or about gold. So when we break it down too, we want to see advanced, we want to see gold, we want to see below basic, things like that. And we want to see the cohort analysis too, what was their growth over time. And if we're moving towards differentiation, our teachers are interested in each child. How have they been moving along? You know, are they progressing each year? Are they moving backwards? That kind of situation. Now, we also promised that we would, the board asked for it, so we're going to give you a short executive summary of some of the key things in the parent survey.
So I think before we go there, oh, gosh. There, and I know next meeting you're going to give us, more information. But the other thing that'll be helpful to see not only what's going on with third grade and obviously, fourth, fifth, and sixth, are amazing, so we can't lose sight of that because, people are looking at third grade. But the other thing that's important too is over time, our third to fourth grade numbers
Absolutely.
change dramatically. Our fourth graders do well, our third graders don't do as well. And maybe not to the extent in, some of the things here, but there's a big jump from third grade to fourth grade historically. So when we see the information and hear about, the reasoning, I think it's important to see a little bit of history as well.
Yeah,
I think that I would argue the exact opposite, which is history, once in a while having a blip that's out of the ordinary is not telling, but the fact that we have a pattern, that we have, that there's a pattern that our third graders are not performing well on the tests, I mean, I'm not, you're gonna give us a review, but I'm saying, to say that they always do poorly is not a good thing.
But I'm not saying it's a good thing, there's a lot of reasons why third grade doesn't do as well. And one might be because we don't spend all our time teaching at the test, and I think that's a good thing. And so, I think it's important.
That's a very big assumption.
I'm not making that assumption,
that we're
but
teaching
I
to the
think,
test in
well,
other
I think
districts.
there's a lot of difference between looking at how our kids do as they leave the school versus how they do on the very first test, standardized test they take. All I'm saying is, I think that, getting alarmed about third grade this year, seeing how well fourth, fifth, and sixth do, I think we need to see that in a context.
it's a good sign that our upper graders are doing well. And again, we'll look at everything and we'll report back to you with the transparency. Sheila, would you like to move in? With the remarks I'll make as far as the parent survey, it's the first time we've given this survey, and we learned some things from it already. One thing that we learned, it was too long. Much too long, because although we had a good response, we had some of our parents drop out by the time they came to the end. We don't know if those were the optimistic, favorable parents or what. And then secondly, it's our initial try with this here. We want to get more scientific with it as we move along as far as research-based in the types of questions that you ask. Because the way you ask a question, it could get a response, a certain response from one person and completely different from another as far as interpretation. So I think we just have to take that into consideration. Yeah.
Recognizing this was the first time out, do you come close to meeting your expectations with regard to the results? Do you have an idea of how it might show up, or is it all startling?
The survey you're talking about?
Yeah. It wasn't startling, it was educational, because we look at things through our own lens, and this is the first time we're really getting a large-scale survey. So I would say it's baseline for us. And we weren't upset by it because we're looking for information, and nothing is perfect. But then we recognize, too, that this has to be put together with a lot of other pieces, because you don't know how a person interprets the kind of question we gave. And again, you had a number dropping off before the end and so on. So it's one piece of the puzzle, and it's a direction that we're going in, where we have we want 360 degrees, where we get feedback from all sides. The other thing we learned too is that we're probably giving too many surveys out. The advice is not to give so many surveys, then people are more apt to answer them, a wider number of people.
But you got a much better response
I was
on
going to
this
just say,
than you did.
in the world of surveys,
Yeah.
in any study done, we have like a 25% response rate. I don't think you'd find any survey
great.
that gets that high of a
It's
percentage.
5 times the normal.
Yeah, I mean,
So that's
so
good.
from the standpoint of being, I mean, to me, 233 to a dropout of 194 by the last question is not a huge dropout. But 233 people out of, and remember, I mean, I have 3 kids in the school,
Yeah.
so I'm not answering the survey 3 times, we answer it once.
How many families
So-
do we have, like 550?
513.
Right, so it's even
Yeah.
better,
I
I used,
figured it
I
as-
used
This is a huge
700.
response.
I actually figured it as 44%
Right.
if you
This is
looked at
huge.
it as a family.
And it's a
So,
much better
44.
response rate than on the
That's
prior
assuming that it's
survey.
one response per family, which is an assumption as well.
Yeah.
What I would say is, let's use this as part of the puzzle
Right.
and as baseline, and as we go along, we'll get more feedback from people from all sides. Jill, it's all yours, you can give
So-
an executive summary.
So my take on it really was that it was very confirming. I felt that even in the places where we need to pay attention and work harder, we still had a majority of positives. So in that way, I was pleased, and I also, I'm going to sound redundant from your goal discussion and from some of the conversations this evening. You're going to hear some of the same words coming up over and over, which is probably a good thing, meaning that we're all focusing on the same ideas. So the goals of the survey, we're looking for parent feedback. We wanted to know from parent perspective what they felt were our strengths, where they would like to see us pay more attention, and really to get information to help inform the goals that you set as a district, as a board, that Dr. Stella sets, and that we in turn align our goals with his and the district goals. So from my figuring, we had 233 parents participating. If we take that from the family perspective, that's 44% of the families. That's really high. Not all participants answered all questions. In the beginning, you'd see perhaps 10 skip a question, 15 skip a question. By the end, and it was 60 some odd questions, there were about 40 were skipping. But we also don't know if they skipped in the beginning and answered later. So, but it certainly was higher at the end. And the majority of the respondents had experience with Beecher Road School. They had 3 years or more experience here. So I thought this was a really important question. The school provides a high-quality education, and overwhelmingly, the answer is always or usually, taking those two as the positive results. And I'll speak to that a little bit more. I'm just going to show you a couple. Obviously you got 60 graphs. I'm not going to do that to you tonight. Satisfied with the vision and leadership of the school board, strongly agree, and neutral is what I'm taking as the positives. I'm taking neutral as a positive because you're not disgruntled if you're neutral, is my take on it. This is my, in discussion with certainly the administrative group. And satisfied with the vision and leadership of the superintendent. Again, strongly agree, and neutral takes us. So it looks like this. 94% of the respondents believe that we provide a high-quality education. 81% of the respondents are satisfied with the vision and leadership of the board, and 89% of the respondents are satisfied with the vision and leadership of the superintendent. So when I take those and I think about what would a congressperson like to have as an approval rating, I would say any one of them would love to see an 89, 81, or 94% approval rating.
Now again,
So-
let me get back to a point, personalize it, because this is helpful information for me too. This is about the superintendent, school board, and so on. But then to dig deeper, I don't know how to dig deeper, we have to try. People who disagree or strongly disagree, was that because something happened in the office that nobody responded, or something with the kids, or is it tied in with an academic vision of the district? So these are things that kind of give you food for thought and for exploration.
So areas of strengths, because you have all the graphs, I'm putting sort of a very executive summary into the strengths. Communication regarding student academic progress, school life, activities, events. All of these I'm taking as communication questions, and when I counted it up at the end, I came up with 22 questions that addressed communication. So that might be something we want to look at some point. Do we need to ask 22 questions about communication? Is that more are we losing the interest of people because of how many questions we asked? But all of those were on the positive
But
side.
communication was a strength, I would say.
I'm sorry? It was a strength.
Yeah.
I'm just saying we asked a lot of questions, and those were the kinds of questions that I rolled into the communication. Maintenance and cleanliness of the building was a strength. Safety and security, as much as we're working and considering that at all times, it was a positive from the parents' point of view. And class size, ample academic supplies was a positive. The areas that we saw in need of attention, and I'll bring up the graphs on these three. You know, and we looked at this from a lot of different angles. Children having a teacher that they can speak to. Sorry, I feel like I'm having to go one way or the other. If they have a problem, this is something that we also noted in our Safe School Climate Survey earlier in the school year. And so to have it come up twice as one of the ones on our lower end has it stand out to us as something, even though it, again, you still have a majority of positives. The report cards, so that's something that's already been spoken about tonight, and academic challenge. So here are the graphs on a child feeling that he or she can speak to a teacher if they have a problem or a concern. Always and usually, sometimes I'm not taking that as positive as I took the neutral before. Sometimes I'm not sure is enough, and I think that's why we're starting to look
More
at this.
importantly, never cannot be your only negative, right? I mean, most people will say, well, it's not never, but.
Right.
So sometimes it's a negative. in
Well, I
these
do
surveys.
think in this survey, sometimes was a negative.
Right.
That's how we as a group
Yeah,
were looking at it.
think that was true in this survey, the way it was worded.
Report card clearly communicates what my child is learning. The always and usuallys brings it to a small majority. So not as much, and it's something that we already know is a focus. So in this way, it confirms something that we were thinking about. And the school does an excellent job of challenging. There were two questions about challenge, one from the child's perspective and one from the parent's perspective. I took the parent's perspective, but neither of them showed it as a great strength. So this is something, again, that we feel is a priority for us to take a look at. So in terms of the next steps, the first thing I think that we need to do when we take a look at this information is to say, let's celebrate and continue to build on the things that we know are strengths about our school. We're always in the process of trying hard to do better, but we do have some things that we could really just take a deep breath and celebrate, and I hope that we have the ability to do that. And I know, Steve, this was a question that you liked, if you would recommend Beecher Road School to another family. And here we see 84% in the strongly agree, and if I put the neutral in, that brings us up to 96. So in this case, I'm squeezing that neutral in too. And I think that's just an incredible statement about how people feel about the school their child attends. So the next steps, and these come as no surprise following the conversation you just had, to really focus on our school culture and climate, to make sure that every one of our, to the extent we can, that children feel that they have someone that they can go to when they have a need. To convene a report card committee, to research and develop a standards-based report card that communicates really effectively to parents. So that's what we're going to be looking at this year. And to continue to develop the differentiated approach to instruction to make sure that our students are challenged. So that's the executive summary.
I think you guys should celebrate way more than you're giving yourselves credit for. You had a highly favorable response from an experienced group of parents. You know, these aren't people with kindergartners. You know, these are people with kids who have been here 3 to 7 years, and it was highly favorable. I think you're not giving yourselves enough credit. I also think even in the areas where you're seeing, you know, as issues and you know, they're issues for everybody and focuses for everybody, you know, you didn't have dramatic, you know, you didn't have 80% of the parents hating the report card. On the report card question, you had, you know, a number of parents saying, yeah, the report card tells me what I need to know. But I think even more telling was that very few parents said they were surprised by anything on the report card, and I think that's impressive. The other thing that I think was really good, question 34, you only said 2% of your respondents disagreed that your teachers care about your children. That's incredible. You know, parents feel like the teachers care about their kids. That is an amazing cause for celebration. And again, the report card, you had 71% say that they think the report card clearly communicates.
Right,
No,
and so we were
and
saying,
again,
you
it's
know, we
not-
know we have a majority of
Yeah.
positives.
Yeah, and again, I just think you should celebrate more than you did. Steve?
Can I just ask one
The
quick
con
thing?
side of, no, I'm kidding. Go ahead.
One quick thing. Was this sent to all parents or one parent per family?
No, it was made available, and it stated that if you had different experiences, for instance, if you had 2 children and they had very different experiences, you could.
No, but I mean, if you had 2 parents and you're asking the same question, so it's possible that you have some,
It
with
is
regard to a
possible.
child who maybe isn't being pushed far enough, maybe both parents respond the same way.
It's possible.
That's all. Thank you.
Sheila is our, wears many hats. One of them is she's our Safe School Climate Coordinator. We have a lot of administrative staff members involved, constantly looking for ways that we could always improve the nurturing nature of our school, look for ways of helping children. Carl, your question before, the one thing that did surprise me was that the number of children, although it's not the majority, said they didn't always have an adult to turn to, because we always think of Beach Road School as a very caring community. And the other question shows that it is perceived as a caring community. So our challenge is to find out, what does that mean when a child doesn't have someone to talk to? Is that the upper grade students that feel that way? Is there something else that we have to know about it? So we'll try to dig deeper with that.
Steve had.
Well, most importantly, I applaud that this was done, because we've talked about doing this for a very long
Thank
time,
you,
and I'm
Steve.
just thrilled that it's done. And more importantly, that it really does support some of the things that we've talked about at the board. I mean, we walked away with knowing that report card's an issue, challenging our kids. And while I completely agree that, you know, strongly agree are your positives, and I wouldn't, and your neutrals you want to throw into the positives, I don't agree with that necessarily, but I agree it's not a negative. I think that the distribution shows us that there's always room for improvement, that we're not 100% to everyone. And I think the goal of these surveys is to help drive things that we should potentially take action on. And some things we may say, you know what, we do our best. I mean, there are things in there about communication. So there are people that don't know that they answered, I don't know. And I don't know means we didn't communicate, not necessarily you, but I mean, most of it's the board stuff, like that we're not communicating well. So I think all of these things, even when you're performing in what we say is a positive 85%, if it's 40% strongly agree and 45%, you know, mostly agree, and then a bunch of neutrals, there's still always, you know, areas for improvement. So I think actually, I mean, I'm thrilled with it, and I liked your executive summary, and I liked, you know, the walk away on where we can improve, and I think that's how you're supposed to approach these things. And in general, when, you know, I view this like a Press-Ganey essentially, which is, you know, sort of, you know, I mean, Press-Ganey scores are not things where you're, you know, if you're at 30% approval, you really probably should shut down. So, you know, most of these are going to be higher approvals because people are generally, you know, happy with the place. The issue is to take the happiness to another level, and I think that that's where, if you're at 85%, getting to 92 is a huge improvement. And even if we went up 3 or 4 points on some of these things, it's a big improvement, and I think that that's what we should always be striving for. So I look forward not only to the plan moving forward, but doing the survey again and seeing where we fall out on many of these questions as we, you know, try to implement changes.
Are we doing another survey soon?
I mean, this was like an end of year.
Yeah,
thing.
yeah.
I mean, I would
Exactly.
So-
suggest
Yeah.
that this kind of survey not be done more than once a year. I mean,
Exactly.
that's
Right.
a,
Exactly.
Towards the end of the year, we'll.
Okay.
So the climate survey is required every other year.
Right.
This survey, this is a decision for
Right.
you and Dr. Stella
the climate surveys how frequent?
every other year.
It's required.
You can do it, but
I think this is a good survey, and I think, and towards the end of the year, maybe May, around that time. You know. And we just try to look at it and improve the questions if we can.
Fewer questions.
I'm sorry?
Fewer
questions. Yeah, fewer
But I
questions,
would
yeah.
be, again, as much as we see fewer questions, I would probably whittle it down. Again, a 40-something% response rate is
Yeah, is
phenomenal,
good.
even though there's a lot of questions. People felt they wanted to answer these questions.
What I-
Because most surveys, you
Well,
really are less than 10%.
If you're using it as your baseline information, which we are at this point, this is the survey that's informing, the more we change it, the less it's our baseline.
Right.
With this survey, I've seen surveys from some other districts that were very generic. We put it right on the line, whether it was school board, superintendent, communication, teachers, whatever. So we're looking for feedback, and we're not afraid of feedback from that point of view. Sheila, what I would ask you, get an executive summary. The school board had asked for just a little follow-up to your your excellent update on the TAG program. Just highlight a few things as far as what has happened since the audit.
Okay, so shall I turn this off, or is this the end of?
If you
I just don't
need
want
it,
to
shut
leave
it
the
off.
bulb
Yeah,
on.
Sure.
It's an easy issue, I suppose. New hat. So I'm taking this in terms of the recommendations that we had from the audit, where we are in terms of the implementation of those. And again, you're going to hear some of the same words you've heard over time tonight in terms of the direction that we still need to take. So when I looked at the recommendations, it was easier for me to sort them by topic. So when I looked at the identification process, which was one very important piece that we were looking at, we have completed all of the pieces within the audit. So we're a little bit ahead of schedule on that, which I think is great. The last piece is a standard appeals process, which we've written, and we just need to review and make sure is, published, and that we had planned to have done by this June of 13. So that's it's written, it's not published. Everything else has been completed under that category. We're feeling really comfortable and confident that we have a valid and reliable, defensible identification process, and that we are reaching across the community to make sure that we are looking for students, actively looking for students, not just waiting for somebody to say, I noticed this, but making sure that we're asking the questions so that we are actively looking. Under professional development, here is a place where we have, you'll hear some familiar terms and some work that should be in progress this year. One was develop a 3-year plan for professional development in differentiated instruction. That was informed by surveys, the audit, the district goals. So that was something that we had hoped to complete earlier, but has been, with the work on the professional development committee and a lot of reasons, that hasn't happened yet. So that's still here on the runway, and we'll need to take a look at what does that mean now? Is it a 3-year plan, or is it some other variation of that? And establish a district definition and common language around differentiated instruction. And I think that speaks a little bit to some of the conversation that we heard tonight, because I'm not sure that if each of you wrote your definition of differentiated instruction, that would be the exact same thing, and I'm not sure that if every teacher wrote theirs at this point, it would be the exact same thing. So having that common language and common understanding about what is it exactly that we mean when we say this, and how then does that translate into the classrooms, I think will be helpful. In terms of program services, you saw an update of the language arts work that we've done. That was a pilot program in terms of the application of technology. We're really looking forward this year to seeing how does that translate now to a broader range of students. And that may help us speak to the challenge that we're looking for more students across all the grades, not just those that are identified as TAG. but giving that in feedback in a conversational way between the facilitator and the student who's making choices about their learning, and then making more decisions based on that specific feedback is something that we hope to see, especially in the older grades. We are using rubrics now and anchor sets to make our decisions. That's been very helpful. In terms of communication, everything's on the website. It's also, all of our work is up on Beecher Today for our teachers to access instantaneously when they're looking for it. So the next thing on the runway in terms of communication is considering a parent advisory committee, and how can we have that parent to school conversation about our work with students who are talented and gifted. Narrative feedback, all of that, student reflection is all in progress. So we really have about 3 major topics to take a look at in terms of the audit and the recommendations thereof.
Thank you. Just for reference, the original audit and the recommendations, are those on the website somewhere?
Yes.
Okay. So any of the people who haven't been through the presentations have access to the audit of the TAG program. What year was that? That was
2011.
Yeah, the 10-11 school year, right?
Thank you. Does anybody have any questions for Sheila?
So when you say you're actively reaching out or actively trying to identify, are the guidelines updated on the website on how you're identifying actively, or?
There's a PowerPoint on the identification process that's on the website. One of the things that we are doing too is using the CMT as a screen. So we look at the top 15% of our CMT performance, and make sure that the teams have the information on who is highest performing, just as a screen to say, if these students are performing at this advanced level, have you looked at them as a whole child and considered whether or not they might have a gift or talent? And that's not something we did prior to 2 years ago.
Thank you very much, Sheila. I appreciate the work that you're doing in the committee, too. We have, our teachers give very generously of their time and talents. Depends how you look at it. We're a large school, but we're a small school because we're one school district. And many of our teachers, we have a lot of committees, so do double work as far as serving a variety of them. They give very generously of their time, and we want to acknowledge.
I should have said that, thank you for saying that.
We will acknowledge our administrative leaders who give very generously of their time, but also our teachers who are always there for us.
Okay, if you're all set.
I think that's fair enough for me. I don't know.
All right, Facilities Committee, the new committee hasn't met yet. Karen Kravitz is the chair. She has scheduled an initial meeting for September 3rd at 7 p.m. It's really more of a meeting, oh, I'm sorry, did you want to do the, sorry.
The SBAC.
Yep, Steve's pointing it out,
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
sorry.
Thank you.
All right,
And
Never
I'll
mind.
try to, you heard my voice a lot, I'll bring some other voices on too. We showed you the CMT. The CMT is going to be a measure of past learning. The state had earmarked the year 14-15 for a change from that standardized test, written test, to a computer-assisted kind of testing, standardized testing that would adjust to the learning pathways of every child. So that's a move towards differentiation, you might say. So we're asking you, it's a major move. The commissioner has given districts the flexibility of stepping up that process by 1 year or staying with the CMTs for another year and changing the next year. I want you to hear some different voices, but my opinion is that we move quickly towards the SBAC because that's where we're heading. It's higher order thinking. It'll raise the bar for our children. Ties in with our initiative towards making it a more challenging environment for them. It'll give us this year to prepare for the it won't be measured this year as far as publicly measured, the way the CMT is. But let me ask Nancy, our testing coordinator, to give her opinion as far as her recommendation as far as the changeover.
I just think it's important to just dive right into the SBAC. We did a pilot of it this year with 3rd and 4th grade. But I think what it would alleviate is the fragmentation of having one hand in the SBAC and one in CMT. For example, in math, Venn diagrams are included in the CMT, and they really aren't used for very much of anything else, and teachers have to stop whatever they're teaching, make sure that they include things like Venn diagrams that are going to be tested. And I think this would just focus us in a more positive way.
So we won't get results?
You'll get results, but the results won't be publicized the way the CMT is until the year after. The year after, when everybody has to do the SBAC, they will be publicized.
So you won't, will you get results back so
We'll
that
get
at least you,
results.
I mean?
But you won't be able to compare them to other school districts.
Right.
Yeah, but-
No, but we'll get a
We'll
report
get-
on how our kids did on this thing, it's just that they're not gonna be printed in the paper, is that?
Yes, now it's a little cloudy in a few areas,
That's
so
what
I
they're
want to have full disclosure on this here. I think it's the right direction to move, because again, this is a measure of our Common Core, goes hand in hand, it'll be tied in with our reporting system and so on, moving towards our differentiation in that it adjusts to the pathways of children. But we won't get the results of the test until the following September. So that's the caveat.
So when you
Instead
say the
of
following
August.
September.
We usually
You
get them in
mean,
August.
you mean
That's
a
correct.
full year later?
No, a year from this.
This
No,
September,
a month
year-
later.
Instead of August,
So instead of
September.
August, we
A
get
month
September.
later.
Right.
Instead of
A
July,
month later.
the way we're supposed to get CMTs, although they were late this year, they
Right.
say they say September, hopefully.
So it's not like we're skipping a whole year and I.
No.
Are a lot of schools doing this?
I
A lot of
think so, yeah.
districts are, yes. I was
So-
at the conference with this superintendents from across the state. Anybody within range of me was moving in that direction. And I think the higher performing districts especially.
So I would 100%.
What happens to the DIRG? Do we know what percentage of the folks will migrate right away?
I say, personally, who cares? I mean, you know, my feeling is that we have a new test coming down the road. There's no reason not to do it now, and I think we've already started changing curriculum, and we're asking teachers to
Yeah.
teach to an old test and to the new, and I think if we've made a curriculum shift, we should support the curriculum shift with the testing that goes
I
along with
agree
it.
with all of that, but in terms of the public, or in terms of what we know about what it means, will we have DIRG comparisons in the first year, or we?
No.
No, no, we won't have anything.
We can just compare ourselves to ourselves, which I
And
think
how
is
would you
really
compare,
important.
for example, the much-ballyhooed improvement from 3rd grade to 4th grade? We wouldn't have that
We wouldn't have that
comparison.
same
We
measure.
would
Well, you'd
not
still have
do
like
that.
at proficiency, and so you could still
They
see,
get the
well, how
same,
many
but they're
get.
actually not the same categories though, right? They're actually, are there the 4 levels again?
They say they will have categories. There's a lot that we don't know exactly. What we did this year was a pilot test,
Right.
which was across the country so that they could revamp the test. And once that's being revamped and they've looked at some of the questions that either worked or didn't work,
Right.
then they're going to refine the test and then we'll know later how that's going to be. But you will have categories. How
Yeah,
they'll-
what this will do too is, right now we have 2 categories of data. We have the standardized, and the only standardized is the state test.
Right.
And we have assessments that are done within the school to inform instruction and to make decisions and so on. So for this year, we will have to, we will concentrate on preparing for the SBAC, but at the same time, developing our assessments within so that we can follow the pathways of children, so our alternate assessments. I have to mention too, another caveat is that it's pretty well understood as far as those administering the test. The scores will be low. It's a higher order test, so coming out of the gate, don't expect 90s or 95. I don't know what they're going to use for markings, but
Right.
it will be very low. It'll be a whole adjustment. But it'll challenge our children and stretch them more and help us in defining the way we're teaching and working with kids.
But it gets back to an earlier observation I made, that what becomes more critical is whether the results we achieve are in line with our expectations based on what we thought each individual child might be able to do.
Well, I don't think without having data on what the exam looks like, I think it's gonna be hard to set expectations. But again, I think we have always said that the CMT is just one measure, and that we do tons of assessments throughout the year, and so we know how the kids are doing. And we would expect that our kids will continue to perform based on our internal assessments. And this external exam, again, my feeling is, I don't want us to be using old curriculum just for a single test that's gonna be dead at the end of this year. And if we have an opportunity to get rid of it this year, since we've already implemented the curriculum across every grade in most subjects at this point, why wouldn't we just transition to it? And who cares about CMTs for 1 year?
Well, there might be a number of people in our DERG who go to this anyway who won't be there, and like if Avon and Madison are, you know, are the ones that are up there with us change, they're not gonna be.
While we're at the top, we might as well.
Number one.
Retire on top.
You sold me on that one.
Is there a
Okay,
motion?
so it sounds like all the discussion
So
is the same.
I'll move that we authorize the superintendent to implement SBAC testing for the 2013-14 school year in lieu of the CMTs. Goodbye, CMTs.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Abstaining? Okay.
And I want to thank Nancy for her role and quiet way of being our test coordinator and putting in countless hours. People don't think that the CMTs just arrive and we have a score and so on. There's so much work that has to go into them. So thank you, Nancy.
Thank you.
Thank you, Nancy. Okay, facilities, the first meeting, which is an organizational meeting to set up when the group is gonna meet and, you know, some overviews of how things are going, you know, how the facilities committee should continue as it was and change, is Tuesday, September 3rd at 7 o'clock in the district offices.
PM or AM?
PM,
Really?
yes. So, and that's just an initial meeting, that's not the standard time or date or anything else. This is just to try to get a meeting in before the September meeting, because there's lots of things preventing meetings. So that's facilities. BRS building, the building committee met on July 19th and August 14th. The main focus is the additional task assigned from the town was for the project to look at security. So that's in progress. The committee is also looking at planning dates for, they're planning for dates to update the project. So the project is not changing in any of the underlying components. The addition will be the assignment from the town to add security requirements to the project. So that will be the change in the project, and all of the boards, Board of Selectmen, Board of Finance, and Board of Ed will all see those additional components as they are finalized. And then the other thing that the committee is doing is planning for dates for town meetings, assuming the Board of Selectmen approval of the project, and for dates for the vote and referendum. So all of that is in process. The next meeting is in September, and they're hoping to finalize the security, safety components of the project, and then have that information available for everybody. So, did I miss anything that you're aware of? Okay. Okay. Policy committee, Matt.
We had our first organizational meeting on August 1st. We agreed to meet on the first Thursday of every month with the exception of September, which is going to be meeting September 19th. We're meeting at 6 o'clock. We actually started to review the 5,000 series. It's the most voluminous of the series. It's going to take a while to complete. So we won't have anything to offer to the board for a while, I don't believe. But the next meeting is on September 19th.
Okay, and finance, Steve.
So we did not meet last week, so we are going to run through the finance committee documents. These are year-end. Are these full, or do we still have a few outstanding?
These are the final unaudited 12-13 year-end reports.
Okay, so I'll leave it if you want to run through. Sure. I'll make a motion so that we can discuss it. Move that we approve the 2012-13 Board of Ed Monthly Financial Summary Report ending June 30th, 2013, F1, as submitted by the Director of Business Operations.
Second.
So the one thing I'll say beforehand is the numbers look like we have a surplus. If you remember that during the year we
ran some surpluses in certain line items and moved to some capital projects. So in F1, it looks like there's a larger surplus, but as you go into the monthly detail report, you'll see where we moved the line item transfers to pay for some of the projects we did during the year, so.
If I may add to that, Steve, again, remember this first page looks at it as a cash basis only. So, for example, if you look over to the right, the year-to-date variance, 784,517. Actually, June year-end is when the summary cash basis report and the detail reports really speak to each other succinctly. So, for example, taking that 784,517, what looks like a surplus, and if we look to page F4 and see that we still have encumbrances outstanding of about $739,000, the net of those two is the $45,000 surplus that's projected. So some of you may be asking, why at June 30th do the cash and the detail not agree? And the key answer to that is because the model assumes that all of the district's bills will be paid by June 30th. For example, as you're aware, we still have some projects going on. We have the paving project, we have the telephone voicemail installation, the acoustics project that just completed. Those items have not been paid, but this model assumed that they would have been. So the real tie-in to these two reports is, the first page, F1, explains the key variances on a cash basis where the resultants followed. And for example, you look at health insurance savings, there is an actual savings of $275,314, yet a timing difference. Again, there's some final year-end anthem bills that are still in the pipeline. So we've got two pieces playing to that variance, but the net in the end, when you factor out all of the obligations known as encumbrances, the net surplus is $45,000.
Excellent.
And the figure that is reflected in timing is known to be
Known
correct. At
invoices.
this point, it's a known invoice.
Correct.
And just as a one positive thing, if you remember last year, we did the conversion to natural gas, and it's nice to see that we locked in $120,000 savings on heating.
Correct. Very good work.
All right. Any discussion on F1?
All those in favor? Good, thanks.
All right. So then move that we approve the 2012-13 Board of Ed monthly detailed financial report ending June 30th, 2013, F2 through 5, as submitted by the Director of Business Operations.
Second.
So essentially, this report is the detailed report of what we just went through, which shows the encumbrances as well as the line item transfers. If you look at the adopted budget versus budget transfers, those are the monies that we moved depending on where we had surpluses and where we did some extra spending. I don't know if there's anything in there that stands out, but essentially the upshot is at the end of the year, we expect to still return approximately $45,000 to the town. So.
Any discussion?
Damn.
All those in favor?
Any opposed?
Okay.
Too much money left on the table.
All right, finally, move that we approve the 2012 Board of Ed combining financial statements ending June 30th, 2013, F7 through 8, as submitted by the Director of Business Operations.
Second.
All right.
And these last schedules are largely unchanged from what the board was presented in July. The programs that took place in July and August of 2013 will have those final month-end numbers and tabulations for you at the September Finance Committee meeting.
But essentially, all of our programs ran
All of our
effectively
programs
and
were
efficiently this
favorable.
year.
You will note there's a slight deficit in the field trips account, and that's from a culmination of several trips, which we have some receivables, and attempts are being made to collect that, but there's ample fund balance to offset any current year deficit.
Okay, any questions? All those in favor? Okay, great. And Steve, can you just, for everybody, tell us when finance meets?
The second Monday of the month at 7 p.m. Right? There you go.
Okay, thank you. All right, so.
It's a really fun committee.
It is a fun.
You should come.
I want to take this opportunity to thank Al Pulo and the Finance Committee because This year it was wonderful to see the cost savings, they didn't happen by accident, and also the wonderful projects that were done with the support of the board, working through the finance committee and the town, and all for the benefit of our children.
Okay, CABE liaison. Lisa.
Not a lot going on.
It's summertime? Is that what's going on?
The annual meeting coming up in November, early registration deadline is the end of the month, August. If anybody is.
I encourage everyone to join Lisa and me at the CABE meeting.
What's the weekend again? It's the
16th to 17th.
It's fun when you know people, when you have people from your own board there, so you can sit with them and talk.
So everybody knows about the CABE meeting, everybody's gotten the brochure, everybody got the stuff, right?
Is it possible just to go to like the Saturday?
Yes.
Okay.
Margaret is-
And then the CABE, the CABE meetings, those are starting
In September.
in September, okay. All right.
If you're going to attend, though, you do need to notify our office, just so we can process the appropriate payment.
And soon. So when do you want them to tell you, Marcia?
tomorrow.
Tomorrow. Okay, there you go. Yeah, this week. Okay, ACES liaison. We had no volunteers, so you have a list of ACES dates. We will each take one. And if you can't make the date you take, you will have to find your own replacement. So.
Are they okay with this? I mean,
That we alternate? Yeah,
I mean-
we did it once before. Remember, we had like 3 or 4 people go, and then David decided he would go. It's not as cohesive. I'm sure that they would prefer we had somebody who would go, but unless we've had somebody with a change of heart. And
When are
somebody
the meetings?
They're during the day.
During the day,
They're during the day,
Thursday.
12 p.m.
It's not gonna happen.
One a year. That's all we're asking. One a year.
On a Thursday?
Yep.
Are they
They're
all
Thursdays.
Thursdays?
It's the
Second Thursday of the month
Thursday
unless
of the
otherwise specified. So why don't we do this? We're not going to run through them now. Everybody pick a meeting and pick a second and send it to Marcia, and then we'll work it out. Is that okay, Marcia? Okay, so everybody pick their first and second choice, and we'll work from there. Okay. One a year.
I'm sorry,
One.
second Thursday.
Second Thursday, and the dates are here, so.
Oh, you're
pick a
passing
date.
that around?
No, it's in your packet, it's in e-meeting as well.
Ah,
Everybody's got the dates, right? Here, you can have this one if you want.
oh, thank you.
Paper copy. Marcia also handed them out, so you also have them at your place.
No.
No, I didn't
Oh, you
give
did?
them out.
Oh,
I put it out
you
the
gave one to
meeting.
me.
I gave you the
Okay,
dates, so you would
okay.
have them in front of you in case there was any
Okay.
question.
They're in the packet and they're online. Okay. And public comment, Marcia? Anybody sneak up over there? When's the teacher lunch? Tuesday is the district lunch, Wednesday is the PTO lunch, and Thursday is the WEA lunch, right? Yes.
Right, I'll put something in the board that we do. Of course, very much. Tuesday would be more than welcome.
So Tuesday is the district lunch. right?
District lunch on Tuesday, PTO on Wednesday.
WEA
on
Every year before school starts, the teachers start a week earlier than the kids. They start this Tuesday, the 27th. So the district provides a lunch for the teachers, and the board is welcome at that luncheon. It is at noon on the 27th in the cafeteria. And then Wednesday, the PTO does a lunch for the staff, and Thursday, the WEA does a lunch for the staff.
WEA has their meeting right
What is the
afterwards, so
WEA?
it might be,
Woodbridge Education Association. Teachers.
Teachers.
so I would say probably the district and the PTO.
But yeah, I think the district is the one that we're,
Yeah, come to the
Yeah.
district one, it'd be
Yeah.
more than welcome. It'd be nice to have you there. Teachers
Okay.
would love to see you.
Move adjourned.
Second.
all those in favor?
Yes.
Okay, thank you, everybody.
Thank you.